Hey, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us at Iterative Ventures and going over Ignition's recent product launch, as well as their perspective on how to use AI on product marketing and helping to ease, especially product marketing managers' load, etc. And Just for context, I had the fortunate opportunity to work with amazing members, Kartik and Derek, since 2021, when we decided to back them. And all throughout this journey, the Ignition team has done a stellar job in just keep executing against their vision and iterating and bringing in new technologies into their platform. So today's AMA is going to be their showcase about what they've done, what their journey like, as well as to celebrate their product launch. So, Derek, please take it away.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So I think we'll end up spending most of this time talking less about Ignition directly and more about kind of what's going on, what we're seeing, holistically as it relates to AI in product marketing across the market. And I actually just came out of the Product Marketing Alliance conference in Austin this week, and so was just talking about this a whole bunch with a lot of product marketers and how they're using things today. I'll leave most of the time, here for kind of like questions and Q&A for us to treat it as a little bit of a dialogue, but just to, kind of table set a little bit, I threw together a quick little deck that we can run through and talk about what we're seeing out there as it relates to product marketing and where we think it's going to go over the next couple of years. As everybody knows, AI is super hot right now. Everybody is looking at ways to use GPT-3 and ChatGPT to integrate into their workflow and speed things up. Investment in it is going crazy, and a lot of the AI native platforms are growing really fast right now. A lot of people are considering it to be kind of the new major platform shift. That is the next wave after mobile and social. And the thing that a lot of people have not really wrapped their head around, though, is just how fast it's actually going to get better. This is a kind of breakdown that Sequoia did, looking at different categories of AI and how this is going to advance over the next few years. And I think the thing that people are looking at today, where they're using ChatGPT to do some basic copywriting or spit out some kind of generic answers and research, that with GPT-4 and as companies start actually fine-tuning these models, is going to rapidly advance to the point where, on the writing front, for example, GPT is going to be able to write better than most humans, probably within the next 2 years. Eventually it's going to be able to write better than the very best writers. So this is really rapidly accelerating. And, today there's already a lot of ways that we're seeing PMMs start using both AI powered tools as well as just the large language models directly to speed up what they're doing. So the most obvious one that like most people have kind of heard about at this point is using these tools for copywriting and proofreading. So a lot of folks we're hearing are starting to use copy.ai and Jasper. We actually even have some embedded AI copywriting tools directly in Ignition to help actually spit out all the different assets that are created around go-to-market planning. I think it's often being used in most cases for instances where you need a large number of variants of copy. So, because it's good at kind of giving you a starting point, but it's not really going to fine tune and create absolutely perfect copy that's as good as, most like product marketers would be able to write. Folks are using it as, a starting point when they need to crank out a lot of, for example, like Facebook ads or Google ads, where they need, multiple different versions of the same message. And then they're using it as kind of brainstorming tools to help generate, some initial ideas around what to say. There's a lot of use cases that people are applying today around ideation. So, they're using it for generating content ideas, for generating ideas around what audiences to target and what personas to be going after. They're doing it for things like generating category names for new products that they're introducing in markets. And it's really good for that, just spitting out a bunch of different, expanding your thinking laterally based on, kind of a broader data set. They're also using it for upskilling themselves. So we're seeing a lot of PMMs talking about using this for, industry research to get just a baseline understanding of new industries when they join companies that, are working in a space that they haven't worked in before. They'll go into ChatGPT and ask questions like, tell me everything I need to know about the regulatory environment for payroll. And that will give them, a quick summary for them to understand, get up to speed, so then they can start becoming a subject matter expert more quickly in new roles. They're also using it for learning frameworks around how to do product marketing. So this is especially true of more junior product marketers that we're seeing that are, using ChatGPT to teach themselves things like narrative design or how to do positioning, rather than going out and reading blog posts about this. They're kind of synthesizing a larger batch of information through ChatGPT. But the stuff that people are doing today is still pretty rudimentary. And like the common theme that I heard across every single product marketer that I talked to at the event this week was basically, AI is giving me a baseline. It's a good starting point, but like none of it is, ready for primetime copy that I'm really going to use in customer facing contexts. And, the ideation is still pretty basic. So, it still requires thought, and like, they're not feeling like, they're at risk of being replaced anytime soon. Or, really, really replacing significant chunks of their workflow. They're just kind of using it as an accelerant. But I think when we look at where AI is going to impact over the next couple of years, there's a couple of key spots in product marketing. One being insights and the ability to actually collect and synthesize information about your customers. The second one is helping with enablement across the company and making the strategic information that product marketing is creating more accessible to the teams that need to go and execute on it, like sales. And then the last bit is starting to get smarter about actually generating strategy as opposed to just generating the final kind of output, which is copy and assets. So digging a little bit deeper into these, on the insights front, I think the biggest thing that we're going to see over the next like 2 years is you have a lot of platforms that are aggregating customer insights from a variety of different sources like support tickets and review scores and other places that customers are dropping feedback in. But you're going to start seeing, and some companies have already been doing this, just not using large language models historically, and these are just going to get way better really, really fast as you start applying GPT. And we're going to actually do this in Ignition over the next couple of months. You're basically going to be able to aggregate all of those support tickets and feature requests and product ideas from customers, but then apply summarization and thematic analysis on top of that using ChatGPT. I mean, people can do this today with ChatGPT. It's just not going to be able to ingest as large of a data set unless you're using GPT's embeddings. And you'll be able to spit out segmented themes on like what things are really important to different groups of customers based off of the characteristics that they have, in your CRM data. You're also going to be able to do the same thing with win-loss data. So rather than looking at user insights, being able to get outputs that say, hey, we're winning and losing deals in the small business segment because of XYZ themes most often. Just by looking at deal notes that are getting pulled in from your CRM. You're also going to start to see this across usage data as well. So, we're seeing a couple of our partners that are not really targeting product marketing, but, they are basically trying to surface PLG usage data in ways that, indicates what opportunities are high signal sales opportunities. And so what they're doing is basically taking a lot of different event data that's happening in the product, and they're summarizing that and then spitting out basically more digestible summaries rather than just big, data flows that say, hey, the top 5 accounts that have been logging in the most this week and doing the most, using the product the most in XYZ ways are this account, this account, and this account. And then it's even going so far as looking at within those accounts, it looks like there's 1 or 2 people in, Zoom info that are possible opportunities for you to go outreach to go and do an upsell. So I think you're going to start to see a lot more kind of segmented thematic analysis across large amounts of qualitative and quantitative data. The next thing that you're going to see is making, again, like all of the strategic detail inside all of your documentation much more accessible to cross-functional teams. Today, if you look at the way that like sales enablement tools are working and lots of cross-functional communication tooling is working, you basically have to create functionally cards or modules or docs that are titled, hey, like positioning for X product. And that's not very accessible to the people on the other end, because they have to understand exactly how you are labeling and defining what that documentation is. So they have to know what question to ask in order to search for the information that they need. But I think what you're going to start to see is using embeddings with GPT-3 to marry your strategic documentation that lives across a big sprawl of different documents and tools into natural language queries, where a salesperson can come in and, rather than asking, where is the positioning for the payroll product, and taking them to a document that they then need to go read, they'll be able to just ask a simple question like, how do I talk to a CFO about the payroll product? What's important? And then what will be spit out is a messaging doc that is based on all the messaging docs that you've created for all the different for the payroll product and all the sub features that have been launched recently around that, which will say, hey, here are the key talking points when talking to a CFO, based off of your persona data, based off of your positioning documentation. Here are the couple of assets that are most relevant to this audience that you should use with links to those, as well as here are the recent things that you've launched that they may care about, or things that are upcoming on the roadmap that they may care about. So you're looking across not just kind of the strategic documentation, but also personas, roadmaps, and project management tools as well, to be able to spit out those kind of really rich outputs for sales and support. And you're going to have people being able to look at status updates as well, so understanding like what's going on with the payroll launch, and that will spit out basically a summary that says, hey, the product is trending 75% completion, all the go-to-market work is in progress, it seems to be blocked on these three tasks by these three people, but overall, based on progress, it seems like we're trending towards launching on time. And then, same thing with like, how do I sell against a competitor? We're going to be able to look across all the different, competitive documentation that you have and spit out key talking points for anybody who needs to understand how to either create assets or sell on a sales call against those customers or competitors. This is another thing we're going to be adding in Ignition probably over the next 2-3 months. So this is coming very shortly for us as well. And then the last area that I think you're going to start seeing getting impacted in the immediate term is going to be helping actually generate strategy, which is a level of complexity harder than generating copy from strategy. So what this is going to be able to do is like look at reviews data for a competitor, and basically when you create a battle card in Ignition or elsewhere, you'll be able to drop in a competitor's URL. What GPT will do is suggest the 3 or 4 other competitors that you might want to be looking at that you may not be looking at that are related to that competitor. And then it'll look across reviews data for all of those competitors and say, hey, here is what this specific competitor is good at and bad at based off of the actual customer feedback in publicly accessible places. Also, here's relative to your strategic documentation, here's what your product actually does better than theirs, and compare those two things. Same thing when it comes to personas. You're going to basically be able to look at, drop in a persona that you might be thinking about targeting. Like, for example, we're targeting chief digital officers. And once that is dropped in, it will look across a variety of other data externally and say, hey, based on those folks, these are the jobs to be done that they have, the things that they care about, the process that they use to buy things. And a lot of this is just fine tuning these large language models and training them on the type of output that you want. But a lot of the challenge that people have today is that they are essentially not, they're not familiar with how to ask the questions properly within a tool like ChatGPT or GPT or using GPT-3's API. So as these things start to get fine-tuned, you'll be able to use a lot more external sources to tune the outputs, and create actual strategic documentation, not just copy and assets. I think all of these things are coming in the very, very near future, and they feel like they may be a little farther off, but they are probably all going to be. They're definitely going to be in Ignition in the next, and they will likely be in a lot of other tools by 2024. But down the road, I think the areas that you're going to start to see continue to get fleshed out past those is going to be one, like actually doing full-blown asset generation. So rather than generating copy, which writing is GPT is very good at today, and the other LLMs are very good at today, but you're going to start seeing that getting paired with images to create actual fully fledged ads for like Facebook ads. You're going to see fully fledged landing pages being created that have visual assets paired with copy, and not just the copy itself. You're also going to see a lot more automation around decision making within actual project management workflows. So you're going to see AI starting to make recommendations for who should be assigned certain tasks, and AI making recommendations for whether or not like certain projects should be pushed to a later date based off of how certain things are trending within that project plan. You're also going to see on the competitive research front, AI starting to make more predictive recommendations around new competitors entering a market. So rather than just tracking the competitors that you already have today in your market, being able to say, hey, these are the competitors that we already are looking at, and then monthly basically pushing additional updates that say, hey, a new competitor just launched on, via a press release, and you should be paying attention to them because they do XYZ that is relevant to your market. So, I think you're going to start to see a lot more of that start to be created over the next 2 to 3 years past 2024. But yeah, wanted to leave most of the time here for Q&A and kind of talk through any areas that are top of mind for you guys as product marketers. So I'll open it up for some questions.
Well, I have a question. So this is extremely interesting and amazing. Thank you so much. I'm curious, how did you guys get started with exploring into ChatGPT, AI, and what was your journey like?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we basically we always knew that we wanted to start building this stuff into Ignition over time, because a lot of what we're trying to do is help automate more and more of the go-to-market process itself. And so much of this is writing based. And so we originally started with like, how do we help with the writing component of this? And like both, creating copy, but then also helping to like continue thoughts as you're starting to write out things like positioning. And I think as we've started to explore that stuff, we've just realized, that there are so many more applications for this that are tough for, other competitors to deploy because of because their teams are just larger and slower. And, I think we have the ability to be nimble about this stuff and start to actually marry a lot more closely to customers' needs. So, lots of customers have been asking us like, hey, like this platform's amazing. Love, all the documentation that we have within Ignition, but like, how can I better get this to the sales team? And so, because we're still at the stage where we can think kind of more first principles about this stuff, and we don't already have a lot of other, functionality that we need to account for, we've been able to look at that and say, hey, rather than us figure out some kind of clunky Salesforce integration where we're going to push this stuff into Salesforce in its current format, why don't we just make it really easy for a salesperson to come in and ask the questions that they're really trying to get the answer to through GPT? And, a lot of it's been our own experimentation internally as we've been using it for our own, like creating of our own go-to-market plans and speeding up our own copywriting and seeing what's actually possible and testing how good it can be when given the proper inputs. And, we've kind of just discovered that like, given the proper inputs, it can really actually be 10x better than what a lot of people are seeing, in the way that they're actually using ChatGPT with basic prompts.
Thank you so much. Well, I think you kind of answered this already, but you mentioned about learning about how to ask questions to ChatGPT, and I'm sure that there's a learning curve. What was that like for you?
Yeah, it's I mean it definitely, like, when I first started with ChatGPT, like I was not very good at asking questions in there, and I think most people weren't. We did have the benefit of a new teammate, Jameson. He previously was working on an AI startup and that he sold. And basically it was building custom support chatbots. And so a lot of what they had spent time on was, prompt engineering in building for their specific AI use case. And so he came in and like kind of supercharged a lot of this because he kind of knew how to build the right prompts. And so, kind of up-leveled all of our games pretty quickly. But I think the things that we've discovered is, just the more, it's almost like, the best thing for product marketers here is like, it's almost like writing a brief. And so, when you're prompting ChatGPT, the biggest things that you need to specify are like all of the different parameters. It's like, I want you to actually act like a expert product marketer to do this. I want you to include XYZ in the outputs. I want you to, avoid using hand wavy generalist language, like, be very specific in the outputs that you're creating, like try and use terminology that is going to actually apply real differentiation as opposed to being language that most competitors are using. Like, you need to kind of give it the exclusion rules, as well as the what you want included, and it results in pretty compelling outputs.
It sounds really amazing, and I just have one last question. So it sounds like there's definitely a shift in the way that we should be thinking about to be interacting with ChatGPT. It's also almost sounds like, from the old world where we used keyword search and all of that. You should really treat ChatGPT like almost like talking to obviously a human being, right? So with that said, would you have any recommendation for how people should get started?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like, just go sign up for ChatGPT and start playing with it. Like, I've just basically created a bunch of different use cases where I've, just kind of let my imagination run with it and see what I can explore. So I think, the best thing is just go, anytime you have a question, just keep a ChatGPT tab open and ask that question there before you go Google. Like, every time you go Google anything, just go try and ask the question in ChatGPT and see, if you can get a better answer there first. It also just helps train you on like how to ask the right questions there. So that was, helpful for us. I think also same thing is like when trying to generate things, see if you can give the right, parameters to ChatGPT first, and, see if you can get an output there anytime you're trying to write something, because that's another way that you potentially be able to speed up your workflow quite a bit.
Thank you so much. Those are all my questions. Any question from the audience?
Yeah, I have a question to Derek. Well, thanks a lot for amazing overview of some. I mean, I picked up a few really interesting points myself as well. I mean, what I am particularly excited about is like how this is going to, maybe the AI is going to disrupt some of the platforms that are based on just a database model. And I mean, I was just chatting to, with Richard about this just before you joined. We were just about to develop a platform, and then the AI was coming. Now we're kind of waiting for AI to sort of develop, so that so that's why that's my question is like, do you have any I mean, do you see any promising maybe tools or maybe companies are working on kind of the database side of things, so you can just go in, like, think of a real estate company, for instance, and someone is coming and saying, okay, so this is what I'm looking for, this is my budget, this is that, like, I don't know, like maybe 10 criterias. And then the AI goes back and says, okay, look here, this is what I have for you. Maybe this is I mean, I looked at all the 3 stages that you described. I feel like this is probably something that should be available pretty soon.
Yeah, I mean, I think like when it comes to the database side of things, most likely what's going to happen is the companies that are going to end up winning with AI are oftentimes like not even going to be built directly on top. Like they're not going to be built around this. It's going to be, you know, a feature within the broader platform. Like if you look at a, you know, database company today, using the right embeddings, they can get a lot of those same outputs that, you know, I was kind of describing as, you know, potential outcomes using AI to power that just by plugging in their existing database. So I don't know. I mean, Karthik probably has better insight than I do into, you know, the kind of database needs around, you know, building specifically for this. But you know, I think a lot of companies are going to end up just integrating this into their existing products as, you know, features. And that's sort of the approach that like we've been taking is, you know, we feel like what we can do is accelerate a lot of like capability within the product without necessarily needing to re-architect anything, you know, on the back end in the way that the product's built.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, I was just wondering, do you know anyone, maybe Carter knows, like anyone who's working particularly in this database space, like, you know, I need to watch or at all? If you have any names or promising tools.
Yeah, I just came across a couple because we are working with one other company who is basically what they do is they're contextualizing the data in your database. So the chat GPT is not a generic chat GPT model. I mean GPT-3 model, but it's a contextualized model. But I can ask, I think there's some companies in the YC batch which are doing that. I can get back to you.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you very much. Yeah, I will also be that's really going to be like a big game changer for a lot of companies. You know, it will change complete, you know, approach to kind of platform businesses in general, in my view. I mean, my only problem with ChatGPT, and that's why my experience with it has been just literally, you know, just checking a few things for myself, not really for business. I'm slightly concerned about the privacy side of things because I mean, a lot of people just, you know, when like for the past 2 months, they just rush to it, just do whatever. But I sometimes think that all this information is just ending up somewhere. It's going to definitely may end up with your competitors or anyone else. So really, it's, you know, I feel it's not really something that, you know, people should be using for business purposes at this point until we get maybe to the second stage where things will be a bit more, you know, privacy will be protected a bit more.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I mean, both from a privacy and intellectual property perspective, there's a lot of, you know, challenging things to figure out when it comes to this, because obviously, like if you're training GPT-3 based off of your company's data, you know, to contextualize that data to make it more useful to you, there is, you know, the off potential where it could show up in an external result to, you know, another company. You know, on the IP rights perspective, that's just a total gray area right now where, you know, we were talking to our content writer and she was telling us that, you know, she used GPT to write a blog post about a topic that she had written about in the past, and literally like an entire paragraph of her writing ended up in that blog post. And so, you know, that's a fuzzy area, and you technically—
Chris Ruby probably you're referring to.
Sorry?
Chris Ruby probably you're referring to.
There's probably a few.
Oh, yeah, she was talking about the same thing on NASDAQ entrepreneurial sense recently. Yeah, I completely get that.
Yeah. So it's you know, there's a lot of those gray areas that, you know, I think haven't been fully figured out. I'm sure, you know, what will end up happening is a couple of platform companies will end up creating more kind of privacy oriented large language models that are really focused specifically on those like contextual embeds. So that although, like, you know, I think generally what we've heard, and I mean, Karthik, I think you've talked a little bit about this with like Chima. Have you, like, I thought they had a solution on this, didn't they, for making sure that your data doesn't end up external?
Yeah, I mean they do. I think there's some, I mean, I don't know the exact details, but it seems like there's some settings or some kind of parameters you can use to make sure, and also like I think the data which you're using, one on the privacy side, of course, they anonymize the data, right? So you need to make sure you hash out any user identification, like it's PII, any PII data, including name, email, anything which could be traced to a specific person or a client. But I believe there is a way to do it, but it's not like as straightforward as like for other models. So the challenges still remain for sure. Like, I think one of the things I heard is like on the healthcare, that's one of the reasons why it's not actively being adopted yet on the healthcare side because of the privacy concerns.
I mean, it looks like to me, like there will be probably some different business models. Like one will be public, just like Google offers like a free public service, and then you can get like a premium product where maybe your information is not shared.
Oh yeah, exactly.
So you can just use it. You can use the engine, and then just so that it can only with your data. It looks like probably that's the way to manage it on a mass scale.
That's exactly what GitHub Copilot does. So GitHub Copilot, if you buy it for individuals, then they clearly say that your code could be used to train, and that could be suggested as a recommendation to somebody else. But if you buy an enterprise version, then one of the features of the enterprise version is that they won't use your data to train their model. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
Interesting. And also another interesting thing is like what Google is going to do with this, because that's like going to be a big battle if that starts. I mean, they've just not been very welcoming to this. So
yeah, I mean, either way, good for us who want to use. So we'll have multiple options. So yeah. I welcome that.
Yeah.
We never trust Microsoft when they're gonna just shut it off or make it like, hey, all the word processing software out there, they can't use PD3 or something. So it's always good to have a few options.
Yeah. Exciting times. Thank you very much, guys. Amazing. Thank you for the answers. It's really amazing discussion, actually, picking up some new things.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks everyone for attending. If there are no more questions, we will end the recording here. Thank you so much, Derek and Karthik, for joining us and giving us the overview on ChatGPT AI, as well as how to use it and how to think about it. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having us.
Thanks.